So, Linda, what are we actually doing when we're crawling? I mean, obviously we're crawling and we're
Mhm.
crawling in a particular way. Why is this so beneficial? What is the mechanism that makes this so beneficial?
It's the way that the infant switches from simply um, uh, the movement of this one tissue of superficial fascia, which is the only way it can move initially. So it has to find its joints and it has to break the one tissue down and reassemble it into parts that coordinate with one another. And to do this, of course, it needs blood supply, fluid supply in the joints and to the nerves in different combinations. So the baby is beginning to build this up by tiny little movements, which connect together and connect top to bottom with its respiratory apparatus. So it cannot do anything without the development of the respiratory apparatus. So all of these little movements are developing the respiratory apparatus and connecting the joints so that there is a healthy flow of blood throughout moving throughout the uh, providing the fluid systems which the biomechanics of the body depend upon. Mm? And also, of course, sending these complex signals to the brain. So that instead of when you are alerted to something, you do this, you are able to turn your head and create a movement. But that movement is not something that is only to do with your arm. So if you were a robot, they would only be interested in the head turning and the arm moving, but the whole of the rest of the body is involved. So I'm increasingly breaking that down and supplying Hugo, for example, with more and more um, uh, patterns of movement that we're using and integrating with his crawling to allow more connections to be made. And all of these connections are concomitantly strengthening his diaphragm. So what happens is your diaphragm gets weaker and you begin to breathe here for whatever reason, whether it's simply an aging process or whether it's because you have been under a whole variety of different potential stresses that have undermined your natural ability to breathe healthily and to, as a result of that, move in a fluid way. So what this is doing is reconstructing that. And as you reconstruct that, what you're doing is cleaning the body out, helping the tissue oxygenation to increase throughout the body, and of course, reaffirming the connections in the brain, and to get everything in a much better balance so that your body feels better, feels more alive and responsive. Your whole digestive system, which is dependent upon movement, uh, becomes much more able to provide you with the nutrients that you want, because, again, of course, to be provided with the nutrients is a factor of your respiratory capacity to get the metabolic oxygen to the cell to allow the food to be metabolized and absorbed. So it's a whole body operation. And I've constructed a lot more little movements within that, including a movement which is what a child would do as it was just beginning to push itself up towards a standing position. And it's really nice as Hugo goes through this more and more and more. He's gaining that foundation. Now, if you were put in splints and a standing frame, that cuts off all of these possibilities. It forces your superficial fascia to support you. it weakens your respiratory system because you're not moving. It dries up the joints because they're being moved not by a mechanism within the joint itself, but by the muscle that covers the joint, which then gets tighter and is much more likely to go into spasm if there is any stress on the structure, rather than to redistribute by this nice fluid movement that
Let,
that
let's break this down piece by piece. So this is not a muscular. I mean, people would look at this and say, "Oh, that's it looks like a muscular workout, like almost akin to push-ups."
no, it's the opposite because it's based on fluid.
Okay, so it's not a muscle building exercise, though I do imagine you do become stronger.
Yes, so that's the indirect consequence, but it's not what you're looking at first.
Okay, okay,
And the muscles that you are developing um, in response to the movement and the accessibility of the movement are being built gradually, um, phase by phase, creating the foundation that is necessary, not overwhelming you with muscles on the surface of your body, because a lot of adolescents with cerebral palsy, they have great big muscles because they're spasming all the time on the surface. They can't really do anything with the muscle, or the parent might say they're very strong because they can grab and hold on, but they can't do anything else.
can we say that this crawling builds structural muscles as opposed to
Yes,
surface muscles?
yes, yes,
And I guess muscles that become important for posture and walking.
yes.
So the second
And
question, pardon me, go ahead.
so what is important, that all these muscles are linked together. Nothing is separate.
Understood. Let's get to that in a second, but let me ask you this if I could. So this is also not a cardiovascular exercise in the sense of jogging or doing
No,
sit-ups or squats or anything.
no.
So, all right. So when you say making connections, you're talking about neurological connections, correct?
Both neurological, well, the neurological connections couldn't be made unless the signal was going from the joint and the nerves in the joints in a integrated way to the brain.
So can we say that the movement and the challenge that the movement gives the body, because that's the body's being challenged, correct?
Well, for the baby, it's not really it's a pleasant challenge.
Well, I'm not disputing that, but it's different than lying motionless in a
Yes,
bed. And I mean challenge in the best sense. I mean, if somebody, for instance, isn't challenged professionally, they're likely to get quite dull as the years
yes,
go on, right? But the body is the body's being given a challenge or a pleasant activity or however you want to call it. But from the body's point of view, the body is going, oh my goodness, he's asking me to crawl. I've got to do this. Uh, so it's a challenge. And so I have to muster things in order to make this crawling possible. So one of the things, um, getting so that when you talk about the joints and the fluid in the joints, we're talking about synovial fluid, yeah?
yes,
Okay. And I imagine the challenge intelligently challenging the body in this particular way encourages the development of synovial fluid.
yes, yes.
I mean, I don't know the answer to this question, but
Yes, this is epigenesis, essentially.
okay. So let's break it down really piece by piece. So one of the things that's happening is you're encouraging the production of synovial fluid.
Yes,
Um, this other thing that's happening, I'm thinking in terms of the arms right now, and I realize it's whole body, but the other thing that's happening is you are encouraging the development of new capillaries
Yes,
go, going throughout.
yes, because as blood flow increases, then the pressure of the blood is the epigenetic trigger that grows the capillaries.
Gotcha. And then now, we've talked about this before, the capillaries sort of colonize. They're growing out into the flesh. And now the nerve tissue can now has a basis from which to develop or awaken. I don't know. Is it developing or awakening or a combination of both? Are new
It,
nerve?
it's a combination of both.
Okay. All right. And so now basically the nervous system in what previously would have been a very locked up system, there's not much circulation, so there's not much nervous system growth. The nerves that are there many of them are probably dormant because they're not getting adequate oxygen. Now they're suddenly able to grow and wake up, and now the brain's getting fed with sensation from the world, whereas previously it wasn't getting that.
No, well, it was getting
It was getting
information.
some. It was getting some, and crawling is uniquely no. Well, I mean, in Hugo's case, he can't do anything but. So it's not like he has a wide range of uh, options. Um, and then there's this cross patterning thing, which apparently the physicians found very striking, positively striking. Um, why? And I think I guess if the body's sort of a single working moving as a single unit in a stuck way, in
A lump. Mm, it's a
a
lump.
you don't have the cross movement.
Well, yes, what happens and happened to Hugo is that as his diaphragm descends, his pelvis opens out. As the pelvis opens out, then the femur can engage much better in the hip socket. So, and then with the fluidity now, so that he can move one hip and then the other hip, whereas mostly the children are frozen like this. Mm? And if they crawl at all, they tend to bunny hop. The pelvis is closed and remains closed. And that, of course, gets worse as the child gets older. And of course, it's what happens to everybody as they get older and their breathing becomes more shallow. Pelvis folds in, they get problems with their hips, they get problems with their knees, and so on.
Gotcha. So it's the development of the diaphragm, which is driven by the challenge of crawling. Um, isn't isn't the motion of crawling also developing the hips somehow? Or
The motion of crawling, yeah,
yeah,
the combination of the descent of the pelvis, which is
the sense of the diaphragm.
the descent of the diaphragm, sorry, the descent of the diaphragm, which is occurring because of the movement of the baby's legs and its effect on the psoas muscle up into the diaphragm. So the whole thing is very synergesic, goes together. The pelvis is opening because of the movement of the legs and hips, and of course also very much because when you're asleep, it's still happening. The descent of the diaphragm, gradually increasing blood supply to the blood vessels that will expand the pelvis.
All right. When we say descent of the diaphragm, I want to go off on a tangent if we could. So the diaphragm basically,
But if I could just interject,
yeah,
the diaphragm isn't actually going down into the it's
that's very important.
the pressure, the pressure on the internal organs. It's the diaphragm's pressure on the
Okay.
internal organs that are moving up and down into the pelvis.
That's what I wanted to
The
that
internal.
that's what I wanted to get to. And what's really moving up and down is the dome of the diaphragm. The lobes, are they moving up and down or are they squeezing and relaxing? I'm
Uh,
trying to,
yes, they are. Everything is moving.
but are they, does the diaphragm actually, do the lobes, I'm going to always distinguish now between the
This
dome.
movement,
Oh, go ahead.
it's this movement. It's this movement.
Okay, so when the lobes are going out, the dome is coming down.
Yes, and then it comes up when it.
Okay. 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 And that's what you're talking about. That's what you're saying when you're saying the diaphragm descends.
Yes.
Okay. And it makes sense from a plunger point of view if this dome is coming down and it's a closed system of fluid, there's got to be fluid pressure
Yes, yes,
going
yes.
down. And thus the benefit to digestion, um, circulation of the legs.
Mhm.
And then you say the opening of the pelvis. So that fluid pressure is enough to, is it opening that, do you think it's opening the pelvis on just a simple mechanical basis? In other words, the fluid pressure is just like, just like water washing away the rock or moving the rock, or is there something
Pelvis
else?
is in three parts, so it's the connective tissues that are expanding.
Okay. Okay. It's not.
So when you have a baby and the pelvis expands, the whole.
Okay. So this is very important. So the reason the pelvis expands is because of the steady flux of fluid pressure, and the reason it can expand is it's in three pieces and it's built to expand.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
and the expansion is coming from it's tissue that's expanding, not I mean the bone moves, but it's the tissue around the bone that's starting to open up. And then
mm,
when that opens up, if let's put it this way, if it's tight, the joints can't fit together well. And if that fluid, gradually opens that tissue, now the joints can find their place. Is that a
yes.
way? Okay. Okay, great. And then of course you also mentioned that the leg part of the crawling is is moving the psoas back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And of course, the psoas goes through. No, it doesn't go through the diaphragm. It goes.
Up into the dome of the diaphragm.
So is the top of the psoas attached to the dome of the
Yes, yes,
diaphragm?
yes.
Oh my God. Okay, that's extraordinary. So it's having a stimulating effect on the dome of the diaphragm, or
On the capillaries, on the blood vessels, as you move.
how? So when you're walking, let me ask you this then. If when you're walking, obviously your psoases are changing
Mhm.
length with each step. Are they
Compress it.
are they like pulling on the dome of the diaphragm while they're walking?
Yes, yes, there would be. Everything is moving, isn't it?
So if this were grossly oversimplified, so you've got the two lobes, you've got the dome, you have the psoas that connect the thigh bones, right,
Mhm.
to the back of the spine.
Yes,
But does it go through? Do the psoas go through the dome?
right up into the dome.
Right up
It,
into the dome. Okay.
it just blends up into the dome of the
It's a
diaphragm.
blending. Okay, it blends together.
Mhm.
So as you're walking, you're literally tugging on the dome left and right like this every
Yeah.
step.
So what you're doing all the time is compressing and decompressing, and therefore creating all these pulses, moving the blood healthily along.
And so for Hugo or any baby who's not ready to walk, they get that stimulation
Yes,
and circulatory boost from this hip
yes,
motion. All right.
yes.
So now we're an adult and we've got all kinds of issues. So what's interesting, well, for me, when I started crawling, apparently I didn't know how to crawl properly, right? I'm still figuring it out. And many of the people that you work with that have neurological issues, they just can't crawl at all. So,
And it is so interesting. It is so interesting because they will say to me, "Well, I don't know very much about my early history. My mother isn't around anymore." And I said, "Well, there has to be a neurological stress." Okay, let's see. Try to crawl. Crawl. Well, I suppose, and I demonstrate, and I can't do it. So I said, well, that shows you deep down there was the neurological stress. because you
So,
can
so,
see so clearly. It's
so if somebody's neural, and it's obviously it's not one system, it's the neurological system, it's the circulatory system, it's the
yes,
structural, it's all one unit. But
yes.
I always look at the neurological because that's how these conditions are described, right? So if somebody has a neurological condition, even if it's not a major physical, obviously physical condition, it will be obvious when they try to crawl that they have a neurological condition, even if they're walking around and sitting normally and they seem to be fine. Um, because a healthy, a body in healthy neurological circulatory condition, or I think we came up with neurological first, neurological circulatory, will be able to crawl. We'll be able to crawl with the more or less the correct coordination.
Yes.
And it's coordination that you're looking at, right? I mean, it, it, it's 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 connection. You call it connection,
It's
but it's the
called,
lack of. Oh, go
and
ahead.
it's also flexibility, because what you see also is they're very compressed. So
Okay.
when they try to go, they lift the whole body up. That lack of flexibility is very pronounced. And of course, they have experienced different frequency, intensity, and duration of the stress. So their crawling problems are not all the same.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the disorder, literal disorder, will be visible in
Exposed,
the specifics of the disordered way they crawl.
yes,
And by gradually working them bit by bit to the point where they're now crawling like a healthy infant, they're bringing order to all that disorder. Um, and again, I think an average person could say, well, I see they're getting stronger because crawling takes effort, and I can see they're getting better cardiovascular because it's exercise to crawl. Um, we've described how it improves the circulation, and the circulation improves nerve function. And what else have we talked about? Oh, and that it opens the hips by the mechanism that we've talked about already. Um,
and
how does it? Yeah, go ahead.
the the aim behind it is to get underneath the superficial fascia to reduce the amount of the movement that is mediated by the superficial fascia. So in the end, the movement is when I was dancing, you can see it's this and this. That and you can see very, once you're schooled in it quickly, the adaptations that people are trying to make, and the fact that these adaptations don't work because you lose the fluidity and you come against a blockage. So by looking at the crawling the poor subject is trying to achieve, you can see where the blocks are, where they're still doing this, as opposed to freely. And when you move a limb, you can feel your whole body is involved. You're not just moving one bit in isolation. But the poor child with cerebral palsy is forced to do that. It's very mechanical sort of movement that they're left with.
Okay. So how does this? Well, and all this, it presupposes a brain that can continue to either grow or make ever new connections.
Yes.
In other words, by changing the body and the body's movement, you're now basically waking up
Mm.
among all the other things that's going
And
on. You're waking up.
it
Yeah.
should be stressed over and over again that the reason why crawling on the horizontal is so important is that you are not introducing gravity. You're not trying to have to push the blood up when you haven't yet got the sphincter muscles or the valves sufficient to be able to do that properly. So that as soon as you're in this position, forced into that position prematurely, then there are going to be problems throughout your whole body. because once again, the only way to hold you together or to try to simulate movement is from the outside.
Okay. So it is a much easier posture.
It's why it's so efficient as opposed to going to the gym and doing, as you say, a lot of cardiovascular work and so on, which can be really exhausting. The little uh, uh, um, uh, capacity that you have left.
And then so your it's a better, the crawling position is a better position and to facilitate circulation.
Yes, and you can feel it working on all the joints of your fingers, your toes, everything. It's giving you toes. When you saw the video of me walking in the garden and you said, was it speeded up? It was just toe work that makes it fast.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then the other virtue of crawling is that you're not needing your diaphragm to hold your trunk up.
You're right. Yes, I omitted that, but that's a good observation, Ken. Yes.
Yeah. Now it is a strain. I mean, it's work on it feels like work on the arms and shoulders. Um, but that's not the same as holding the trunk up with the diaphragm. So you're so yeah, so good. We're there's so many parts to this, and it's such once you hear it, it's such common sense, but it takes a while to get the whole picture and to hold it. Um, so the the body through this work, through the crawling work, is developing circulation, freeing, and then the other part is freeing the body's movement, right? Because you're saying because of the improved circulation and the improved articulation in the joints and the improved sensory information to the body, you can now do things a little more subtle instead of this you have because you're getting more info. The mechanism is freed up, but you're also feeling you have greater sensation, and you're able to direct better because the nervous system's developed. So the body's waking up, and the body like literally waking up, and you wake up and you're stretching, and everything is moving and everything. Um, how does that translate into better cognitive function? And which is it's obvious that it does because you took somebody with pretty much down and out dementia, never to recover, and now he's driving a car and fixing his tractor and all that. And then, of course, Hugo is very articulate, is at age appropriate, and very engaging and very lively. That's cognitive social development. These words are so cold, they're so clinical. They don't really express it, but we'll call it cognitive social development. How does improving all these physical things lead to better cognitive social development?
So, psychologists talk about sensory motor development. So that what you see and your desire to reach what you see and the emotion aroused in what you see is forming ideas all the time around you. So you have an idea and you respond to the idea and you explore the idea with your hands. Well, how does this fit together? Put it in your mouth. What does it feel like? Is it hot or cold? So the movement of your joints and the sensations that it's providing to which are connected with your ability to see and hear and feel and reflect on past experience, and of course physically providing more blood supply to the brain to respond to that. So what what was happening to Gene, which allowed him to drive the car, was he already had a much better connection between the way he would move the car via the steering wheel, what he would see, how he would respond to that, and how he would reflect on past experience to bring that in to make a decision. All very much connected.
So in his case, he had a fully developed adult brain, and through this whatever this mechanism was that was spiraling him down, whatever it was, I guess his brain was slowly being starved of sufficient oxygen, sufficient nerve
Well, as
impulse.
again, it's a cascade of events, isn't it? So, whatever was happening to block the blood capillaries and the delivery of metabolic oxygen was, of course, also blocking his ability to move effectively, to breathe effectively, and to see, hear, and connect with his experience and his movement to form an idea and act on it. This was just becoming worse and worse and worse for him. And what we did was just reverse that in the
And,
same way.
and, and I guess implicit in this is that obviously in his case, and you would say in many, if not all cases, um, the brain retains the capacity to regenerate its functioning.
Yes, yes, there's huge amounts of information that Pat Wall and his colleagues in the 70s and 80s produced, which has been marginalized now because we're looking at artificial intelligence and robotics, which are a long way away from the way the brain actually works.